Well, it's certainly been a tumultuous few weeks, hasn't it? Big gains for gold and silver, and now gold is pulling back, and the world isn't maybe as bad as we thought it would be. Why is that? Why hasn't gold and silver gone to those astronomical highs that we've been promised for so long? So let's talk about that in today's video, all about gold and silver. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for another precious metal ramble. I have always held quite the contrarian view to a vast majority of silver and gold stackers who firmly believe that this stuff is the only way to keep yourself safe from the coming financial calamities and potential collapses, and silver and gold will go to the moon. Now, whilst I fully agree that gold and silver are fantastic, I have a fair amount of gold and silver after all, I also am not a fan of the idea of it going to the moon. And I've got one simple question for all the people out there who perhaps have that differing opinion to me, and that is, why hasn't it happened? Or why hasn't it got to a point where it even looks like it might be happening? We've had quite the couple of years here in the world, and it's certainly proven to be resilient. The world has, hasn't it? Let's be quite honest. We've had a global pandemic, we've had rising inflation and interest rates, war on Europeans' borders with a global superpower, and then also now we've got these financial issues and crises looming that could spell perhaps the end of banking. And yet, whilst we've seen some big gains in silver and gold, they haven't exploded in price. They haven't gone to that moonshot level. And they're not looking like they're going to, quite frankly. We are in now a position where gold is pulling back a little bit from the financial woes of the last few weeks. Proof, perhaps, that things aren't necessarily as bad as you might think, certainly on an apocalyptic scale. Now, the reason that I still have a lot of gold in my possession and silver is because I do still think that there are issues with the world's finances, and it's evident that this stuff here is an insurance policy safety net for me. So today, let's talk a little bit more about why perhaps the world is a little bit more resilient than this, and also if you are stacking for the apocalypse and you've spent an awful lot of money on stacking for the apocalypse, just have a little think about, well, what if you're wrong? You know, a lot of the time I have presented arguments where I've said, look, it's not going to happen. The world's not going to collapse. The world's not going to fall over. But at the same time, if it does, I'm very nicely protected from that eventuality. I'm preparing for both sides of the world. What about you? And if you are an apocalyptic style stacker that's happy to try and spend every single penny that you might have in your possession on gold and silver, what if you're wrong? Just ask yourself that question. So, jumping into the first message I always give is just about responsible silver stacking and gold stacking. You know, like, I have been hearing the talk of financial collapse and ruin in this world since 2003 when I went to America. It is just hilarious. There are youth hostels that I went to. Beg your pardon, it was 2008 that I went, and I was around the Seattle region going through youth hostels, and there were some people in there that were beautifully colourful characters, and I absolutely loved my time there. But there were quite a lot of doomsayers, to say the least. And look, we're 2008 going into 2009, 10, 11. Yeah, there was some stuff that went on. But look, the world didn't collapse, the pound didn't collapse, the dollar didn't collapse. We had a very large amount of stuff to deal with, financially speaking. I'm trying not to use an expletive here, but the world didn't collapse, like a lot of the things that I was hearing then. And the world hasn't collapsed since then either. So this idea and this notion that you would want the world to collapse and you'd put all your money into that, you're betting on the world collapsing, doesn't really make sense to me. What I would prefer to see is a slow and steady outpacing of cash with my gold and silver than not. So that's hopefully what's going to happen over the long run. And if you look back just 5 years to some of the purchases that I made of gold and silver compared to now, that is exactly what's happened. You know, there are some items in my stack that have doubled in value. And yes, you can argue that prices have doubled for everything out there, but that's the whole point of gold and silver. It's there to protect you, and it's not there as a quick flip money maker, although that is something that you can do to make money with gold and silver. So Why hasn't the world collapsed? Well, look, we are human beings. We like to live, don't we? That's the whole point of being alive. We want to stay alive. And the idea that governments out there will allow complete and utter financial ruin upon the world is, in my opinion, just never going to happen. Now, I could be wrong. There could be extenuating circumstances to prove me wrong, and there could certainly be issues brewing at this moment within the financial institutions. But look, believe it or not, and there are a lot of negative conspiracy theorists out there that will not believe this, but the world is very different to when the last financial crash happened of 2008, 9, 10, 11. And there are different steps in place to keep things more secure for us. We've only got to look at the current situation. Last time, 2008, when a bank collapsed, it caused an entire industry to just reel for years, and it reared its ugly head over and over again. That's one of the reasons why gold and silver went as high as they did. This time, though, we are not seeing that happening. Certainly not in the same way. Now, I'm not saying we're out of the woods in terms of finances, and gold is certainly playing a role in my mind as that sort of safe haven asset, something that I want to just keep nice and secure. And the same is said for silver as well. It's now starting silver to catch up. We've seen gold pulled back in this last couple of weeks, but of course, gold has pulled back. Silver has stayed a little bit steady in this last week. That's interesting to me. It certainly says that there is still an appetite out there for something that's safer than having money in a bank, but also not as safe and dull and boring as gold. Now, gold will always still play that kingship role. It always has and it always will. But at the end of the day, there are still plenty of other things in this world that are operating just fine, plenty of banks in this world that are doing just fine, that are not losing massive amounts of cash and stocks value. And, what are you got to ask yourself? What's actually going to cause what people really want to happen? I don't feel like it's going to be happening anytime soon. But look, as I've said, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I have gold and silver and I'm doing the right things. But what I think sets perhaps myself, and I'd like to think a vast majority of my regular viewers apart, is that we are not all in on something. We are not sitting there, watching social media go crazy about the idea of having all of your money out of a bank into gold and silver. And whilst I would definitely agree that there is merit in having gold and silver with anybody's livelihoods right now, whether you're a new stacker and getting just a little bit here and there, or a very high budgeted stacker getting lots, I do think that there is merit to be had in having this. But don't overextend. I have seen it so many times and times again through social media here on YouTube, and throughout my tenure, I think every month or so there's something that says the world's going to collapse, and every year I get exactly the same thing. And sometimes I'll go back and I'll find these comments a year later and ask them, but I get people commenting going, "You're wrong, the world is going to collapse by November." And then look, November comes along and even another November comes along a year later and nothing's happened. And I'll go and find these comments and say, what's happening then? When's this collapse happening, supposedly? And you know what a lot of the answers are? And it's the same thing, whether it's just a randomer commenting on a YouTube video or whether it's a YouTube content creator pumping out the same kind of content day after day, month after month. They always just change the goalposts. They say, well, it hasn't happened now, but that doesn't make me wrong. And I would argue that it kind of does, because you're putting constrained time frames on things. It's like the Doomsday Sayer saying the end of the world. 2012 was meant to be the end of the world. 2000 was meant to be the end of the world. But look, we're still here, aren't we? So I think it's interesting because the world is a lot more resilient, I think, than a lot of people give credit to. And certainly one thing I really hate about gold and silver, and it's not really about the gold and silver itself. I love the actual physical stuff. It's brilliant, isn't it? But one thing I hate about gold and silver, it does yield quite a lot of conspiracy theories around it. And, I certainly think that there's quite a lot of, something's been hidden from us. The government's lying to us. The world's lying to us. We're all doomed. We're doomed, Mr. Mannering. If any of you British people of an age might remember Dad's Army, we're doomed. We're not doomed. We're just seeing uncertainty in a market, uncertainty in a world. And this stuff here is a hedge. It's a good way to protect yourself. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And look, I think a lot of people that are doing all of these sort of silly things within the world of gold and silver, putting all their money in it, hoping to get the next big GameStop, It's just that. It's a culture of wanting something quick, something easy, something that will get you to that goal of being that millionaire. But when a loaf of bread costs you $1,000 because, the world has collapsed, you might think again about that $1,000,000 in the bank. It's worthless. And I think it's evident really from what I've been seeing in terms of selling. So I haven't sold any of my gold in this peaks that we've seen. I want to keep it for that long run, for that long-term, protection. And I think that's somewhat different to holding with the belief that one day something will go to the moon. If you've bought responsibly and you've got this budget in your mind and you've got this sort of tactic in your mind of buying and holding and just kind of like a savings account, just forget about it, lock it up, it's done, you'll be in such a great position when the opportune moment comes for you to get the cash out from this. And I've seen it done time and time again from people who do it so well, and they get that cash out at the other end and they put it into something else. And just because you sell some of your gold and silver, and I see it all the time, visceral hate on various different platforms and social media, when somebody sells a piece of gold or silver or advocates that perhaps you shouldn't have, you should buy silver instead of gold. I don't really understand it. It's everybody's individual circumstances and business. You are not there to tell what other people should do. Perhaps this person needs the cash. And, if you've gone overboard with all of your silver and gold purchases and suddenly you've got a increased mortgage payment to pay because your interest rate's suddenly gone up, then what are you going to do? If you've not got the cash, then you're going to lose your house. So this stuff, is a risk as well as a blessing. Certainly something to think about and consider. But look, I'm just one guy with an opinion, aren't I? And I like to think that that opinion encompasses both ways of thinking in terms of, well, if things do really not work out with the world, then I've got some gold and silver. That's been very evident this week with some of the drops in stock prices for various different stocks and shares, which I'm invested in as well. And if you're all in on one asset like silver or gold, you'll be missing out on loads of other things. And look what's happened this week. Things have stabilised somewhat. And that is simply because the world is more resilient than people think. And also, now that stocks and shares are quite low, there's a lot of people who think they're quite a good opportunity to buy and make a lot of money on. So they've cashed out some of their silver and gold and they're doing that. And that's how people do it. It's cyclical. Things go up, things go down. When things start to go up and up and up, like perhaps we saw in 2011, there will be a peak and it will come back down. It will find its new level, its new low. So yes, look, the message here is, if you are a high-budgeted stacker and you want to buy lots of gold and silver, I'm not stopping you. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'll get told off in the comments by some crazies that I'm CIA shill and all of that, but those people won't be watching to the 12th minute of my video. But anyway, look, I'm rambling to the wrong people at the moment. But the point here is, if this has struck a chord with you, perhaps you've realised that having watched all these fantastic videos about how incredible gold and silver is, and read all these articles that happen to be also written by bullion dealers, surprise, surprise, and you're wondering now why all of that beautiful gold and silver that you bought last week is now down like 5%, then you've got to ask yourself, well, things go up, things go down, don't they? And there's no such thing as a sure-fired investment win. Slow and steady wins the race. That's the opportune moment is at your choosing as to how you make money with gold and silver. That's my infinite wisdom shared, and I do hope that anybody still watching has enjoyed this video. To my BYB Ramblers, if you don't know what that is, you are now officially a BYB Rambler because you've listened to the back end of my videos. Thank you, you're in the Cool Kids Club, and I do always enjoy hearing from you down in the comments that you're in that Cool Kids Club, so definitely go and comment. Otherwise, if you want to support our channel, then you can head on over to our website where we've got these two beautiful bars. I mean, this one here, stunning ripples. So I'm pouring a bunch of 100-gram bars at the moment, and sometimes they come out too heavy, and this is 107.8 grams. But when they do sometimes come out too heavy and they look this beautiful, I cannot pain myself to put it back into the melting pot. So we have a lovely little ripple bar here, and it's on our website. So if you want to support the channel further than just watching, liking, sharing, commenting and subscribing, then you can. There are links down in the description box below, but please, nobody feels like you have to. Just simply by watching to the 15th minute of a video is more than enough support than I will ever need. So thank you one and all for watching. We'll see you on the next video, and as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.